2414 is a podcast about finding hope and common ground through casual conversation. Like the friends on the road in the New Testament, in Luke chapter 24, verse 14, we want to walk away with more understanding that leads to more conversation as the journey continues. Thanks for walking with us.
All right. Well, hey, welcome, everybody. This is 2414. My name is Dan Weber. I'm joined by my partner in crime and friend and colleague, Shane Dwayne Welter.
Close. No.
Yep, Shane LeBron Welter. Glad you're here today. We're joined by our fellow friend, Alec Brandli. Alec, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, guys.
This is going to be hopefully fun and not a waste of time. No,
I think we're going to go for the fun part.
We're going for fun.
Yeah.
All right.
Going
cool.
for the fun.
Well, whether this is your first time listening or a regular listener or viewer, thanks for being part of what we're doing here at 2014. We want to have a conversation here at this table that leads to more conversations. Whether you send in an email or a comment, or you share the episode with a friend or a colleague or a spouse, or you just take some of the stuff we're talking about and you begin or continue a conversation in your own life. That's what we're trying to do here. We're starting a new series today called The Journey So Far. We put a lot of work into the name, The Journey So Far. Alec, do you like the name of that?
That's a pretty great name.
Okay. If we don't like it, that's Shane. No, Shane came up with it. If you do like it, give credit to Shane. Comment below whether you like the name. The Journey So Far, what we're going to be doing is just walking with some people and hearing their... I don't even like the phrase like spiritual journey, because that kind of loads the question like it has to be spiritual.
Yeah.
Because their journey might be, I don't believe in anything spiritual. And in a certain sense, like, that's great. I want to hear your journey, where you've come from, how you got to here, and what here looks like. So keeping it a little bit vague, the journey so far, we want to hear about where you're at, Alec, where you've been, where you've come from, what the twists and turns or steady trajectory have been. And we hope that it's I'm expecting, I'm looking forward to learning and hearing from you. And over the course of these few weeks, we'll hear a little bit from me and Shane as well. But before we get to the topic at hand, we've got some business to take care of. If you're a regular listener, you know what we do. If you're new to us and you're still here, congratulations. But we like to share lows and highs, something that's been a struggle or a frustration or just kind of a downer in our month or week or last hour, and something that's been good, uplifting, encouraging, exciting. And then the question of the day. Are you ready, Shane?
I am.
Okay.
I don't know what it is.
I know. That makes me happy. The question of the day is, what's something that's normal in your life that other people would think is weird? So something you do, something you value, something that's just sort of part of your rhythm. Like, oh yeah, this is just normal for me, but I forget that most people or many people, that's not normal. So highs and lows, and what's something in your life that is maybe normal for you that would not be normal for most people?
Chose such a loaded question.
So Shane, why don't you kick us off?
Oh no. Cool. I don't know. I'm trying to think of this question while I'm thinking of these highs and lows.
Should we make our guest go first? Would you like me to go first?
No, that's too mean. You got to give Alec time to think of this.
Would you like me to go first, Shane, so you can think?
We'll
He's had time to think about it.
Yeah, you know what yours is. Otherwise, you wouldn't have.
I haven't thought about it, but I've got all kinds of things. What this says to me, though, is you're not actually going to be listening while I'm speaking. You're just thinking about what you're going to say. Like, this is like the number one thing that's not good in conversations is I'm not listening to you. I'm just preparing what I'm going to say.
Exactly.
All right. Well, at least we're being real. So, hey, my name is Dan. It's a really, I don't know. I say it every single episode. I'm too busy. Got too much going on. Can't keep up. But that still feels true. My low from this week is so hot yesterday. So this will be released much later and people won't remember what the weather was. But here in Washington, today is normal. It's 65 and cloudy. Yesterday was 130, I think. No, 94. Whatever it was. It
felt warm.
So hot. And then to complicate that, I don't remember if I've shared this on the show yet. We have birds outside our window, and it's like a jungle. and they wake up between 3:30 and 4, and they're having a party. And so
it's time to get up.
Yeah, we don't have air conditioning, so we open the windows at night until about 3:30 or 4. We got to wake up and close the windows, and then you start sweating. So at like 3:45 on Sunday morning, I was literally out on my back porch, like shooing the birds and trying to get them to be quiet, and it didn't work. And it was whatever. So the birds. My low right now is birds are a thing.
Birds exist.
I'm going to join that movement. Birds aren't real or whatever. I'm not joining that in case, but I get it.
It's all a lie.
It's all a lie. So birds are my low. My high. It was really warm yesterday, which was nice, and I got to go for a run, and that was awesome. And yeah, I don't. My other low is my daughter having her 12th birthday.
You say low?
No, my other high. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Maybe I said low.
Did you
Wait a minute.
Did I hear that right?
You did.
I misspoke. Oh my goodness. All right, Shane will edit that out in post production. Thanks, Shane. No, my high is that my little girl's growing up. I guess the low is they grow up so fast.
There you go.
All right.
You have to edit the bleep button in there when he said low.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. All right. Something in my life that's weird, that's normal for me that other people would think is weird, is I like running. I love to run, and I love to run in puddles and in the rain and in the mud and in the heat and by myself and with people. Like going out for a 2 or 3 hour run, whether I'm with a friend or totally alone, is awesome. And you can insert your joke of, I only run if somebody's chasing me. And that's okay. So most people don't enjoy running, I think. But I kind of love it. I kind of schedule my day around it.
I feel like that's fair. Not the average person does not enjoy running. So therefore it's not normal. Okay. I see that.
So it doesn't have to be too creepy. Like, don't reveal anything, Shane, that you don't want your mom finding out about.
That's the bar.
or your employer or your spouse, whatever you want. Or your landlord,
Don't tell Dan you've been laundering money.
Yeah.
Okay, so Shane Walter, low, high. You can treat this interchangeably if you like. And what's something that's normal in your life that lots of other people would think is weird?
Okay. Well, yeah. All right. I'll start low. I'll start with low. Yeah. I feel like it. Yeah. I did what you're saying. Like life is busy. There's so much happening. Yeah. So maybe I'll think of a different one to spice it up a little. Low. Okay. High, low. My landlord.
We're breaking all the categories here.
Yeah,
people.
sorry.
It's groundbreaking.
My landlord. We live in the basement. My landlord lives above us. The basement's connected to the lawn, and on the lawn there's a hot tub that my landlord hasn't then, I don't know, put water in and activated the whole time we've been there. And recently she just said, I'm going to put water in it.
Did she use the word activate?
No, I can't think of the word.
That can't be the word for a hot tub.
I can't think of the word turning on. I don't know. Plugged in.
All right, we'll go with activate. So the hot tub has not been activated.
Yes. So this weekend she activated the hot tub. Nice. And but she activated it on like the hottest day, like the 90 degree, and the day before that, I guess, but it was like 80 degrees. And it was just so hot while the hot tub. I was like, oh. But at the same time, I'm literally complaining about a hot tub. So we have a hot tub now. Lauren and I used it last night when it got cold because the weather just fluctuates like crazy. And it's so nice. So that's a high.
Okay. I also love that we have people listening who don't live in Washington, and we're going like, oh, it's like 80 degrees. And they're like, it's summer. It's the end of June. What are you
normal?
Okay. Yes.
That was my low too. I'm with you.
Okay. Good. I mean, it was warm.
We shrivel when it gets warm.
We're in
here.
Washington. It doesn't get above 60 for us. So.
Yeah.
It's too hot.
I'm used to jeans every day.
So,
a thing that I do in my life that is not normal in somebody else, or
normal for you.
That is normal for me. That is not normal for somebody else in their life. I feel like I could say I think I could eat hamburgers every day and never get sick of them.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not normal enough, or maybe. I don't know.
Addicted to hamburgers.
I'm addicted to hamburgers. What's another one?
Do you do vocal exercises every day?
No, I should.
Mama.
I've got one. I'm always terrified to read like messages, whether it's like somebody sends me like a Snapchat, a DM, a text. I'm always scared to open it because I always think it's a terrible thing, and that's just normal for me. So I always have to like get over this hump. Like, all right, it's not gonna be bad. Not gonna be bad. Okay, it's not bad. So in my head, I'm just thinking that like every day I live in fear of opening messages. Yeah. I don't know why.
So pep talk before you open it.
Yeah. I don't know where it stemmed from, but literally just one day, I was like,
so that's normal for you. That other people would say, I don't live in a constant anxiety when I get an alert.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in 15 minutes, I'll think of one that's actually normal. That's all I can think of at the moment.
I like it. All right, Mr. Alec Brandli, welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Lows, highs, and something that's normal for you that other people would go, yeah.
Ooh, also, wait, before you do.
Oh, sorry. Excuse me. Shane has more to say.
Yeah. Just wave to the camera. You can show them your face. So some people are saying they want to see faces more often, so there.
If you're just listening right now on the audio, because this is
true.
a podcast and you're treating it like a podcast, you don't know what we're talking about, and that's fine. But Shane and I have faces, and we are in a room, and we have guests who come in the room who also have faces. If you'd like to see any of our faces, you can go to stlukes-church.com/podcast, and you can find all the videos there. You can find our YouTube channel, just searching for probably 2414 podcast. Would that work?
Yeah,
maybe, probably.
I found it last night with that, so yeah.
Okay, 2414 podcast.
Proven.
Yeah, we've got Alec here, first-time listener, first-time guest. And you can find the videos there, and we are going to do a better job of waving at the camera so that you can see our guests'
You have to get extra
lovely
cameras
faces.
so you can just cut.
Yeah, that sounds like way too much work. That's not going to happen.
Hard enough with the one camera.
So, listener, if you want to be our volunteer videographer and editor, we would happily get a second camera, and you can edit all the cuts you'd like. But if it's me and Shane, which really just means Shane, it's not going to happen. So, Alec, low, high, what's something in your life that,
I mean, my low and high are kind of mixed. I told Shane, I think, Thursday, they finally scheduled surgery for my ACL, my ACL rupture. So, July 15th, I will finally have my knee fixed.
And when did the injury occur?
March 31st. Yeah. So I'll be on 4 months.
4 months without an ACL.
Yeah. So my high is I'm finally getting that fixed. My low is that insurance is the biggest waste of money. They declined and approved my claim for the exact same reasons. Declined one time, resent, they approved it. I don't know what the difference was.
You're going to want to hold on to that approved letter.
Yeah. And I'm going for surgery. They're going to wake me up. Listen, your insurance said no.
Yeah. You should copy that and laminate it and tape it to your chest going into surgery. Like if unconscious, see document.
Tape it to my knee.
Yeah.
They already approved it. You have to do it.
You have to.
Yeah. So that's my low and my high. I'm having surgery, and the low is that they took so long to do it. My weird thing, I don't know, it might just be me. I love the smell of fresh laundry out of the dryer to the point where, like, when I was a kid and my mom would bring it out, it would come to me first. Like, she would bring the basket into my room, and I was like, I just really like that fresh laundry smell.
Is it the fabric softener?
I don't know. I think so. It's same like if you're hanging like your shirts or jackets to dry because they can't go through the washer. Like, we hang those in my bathroom, and when I walk in there, I'm like, this is the best air freshener you could have ever put in here.
Ooh. So wait, just to clarify, so she would just bring it to your room and just leave it there?
She probably expected me to fold it, but I enjoyed the smell.
You may have misinterpreted her gesture there.
I may have. It's very likely. I was like, yes, the smell of laundry. And she's in the other room. Like, why haven't you folded the clothes yet?
Her hopes got so high. You were like, hey, can you bring it to my room? She's like, absolutely.
She's like, I've been waiting for this day. And then I just kicked it back out in the hall. And she's like, all right.
I'm just picturing you dumping a basket and you're just sitting in a pile of fresh laundry.
When I was like a small kid and able to hide in a pile of laundry, definitely. I'd sit on the couch and they'd come dumping on you. It was great until a zipper hit you.
Yeah, they'll catch you.
Yeah, the hot zipper coming out of the laundry.
Hot zipper.
Yeah. See, Alec, this is great. I love you're bringing to the table a real conversation. you can't script conversations. You don't know where they're going to go. I didn't know we are going to talk about hot zipper in the face. And
can't script a hot zipper coming out of the laundry.
But at least it smells good.
Yeah.
So
yeah, as I was in searing pain, at least going down with a good smell.
Awesome. A good smell brings a great story.
Yeah.
So we're just wrapping up a series on transitions of how there are moments in life, graduations, moving, retirement, that we all go through transitions, and sometimes we're just sort of left to figure it out, and we don't have other examples of what that looks like. In this little series we're starting today, the journey so far, we want to hear from you today, Alec, and from other people in the coming weeks about where they are in their, like I say, it's such a loaded way to say, like, walk of faith, because I don't want to load the answer into it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if worldview seems like too academic of a way of describing it, but kind of philosophies or spirituality, or maybe other ways you could get at the similar thing. But
yeah,
in terms of how you see the world, reality, God, gods, no God, to kind of start with today, how would you describe where you are with, like, how do you see the ultimate reality? Like, it might change tomorrow, maybe it's different last week, but today, where is Alec Brandli at with, here's what I believe?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you want to kind of break down, obviously you don't want to load the question, but if you want to break it down more into like the walk of faith, I actually didn't grow up in the church. I grew up more like agnostic. So I kind of like the belief of God, but I was never like convinced. And I was that way probably till my junior year of high school, so 2015. Okay. And a friend of mine, Nathan Gamble, who went to church here, he was always trying to get me to come to his youth group. And I was like, no, like, this isn't for me. And one night he was just like talking like, man, I really wish you would come to youth group with me. And I, at that time, kind of knew the routine of when he would leave and whatnot. And I was like, oh, man, like, if you hadn't have left already, I'd go with you. Mm-hmm. And he called my bluff. And he pulled into my driveway 3 minutes later and said, okay, well, if you're willing to go tonight, we're going to go. And so in 2015, I had gone to my first ever sort of real church event.
Okay.
And I will never forget that night, strictly because my first night there, I nailed a girl I'd never met in the face with a dodgeball.
Dodgeball in the face.
First game we'd ever played, and I'm hitting people in the face with dodgeballs that don't even know me, and I'm like, this is a horrible impression.
So it wasn't great off the bat. Okay.
No. But that kind of opened the door for me for interacting with the church, and it wouldn't be till, I don't know, probably that summer, so good 5-6 months later, we went to Creation Festival, a music festival in Eastern Washington for the week, and I kind of got to talking to the pastor at the time who was here about just kind of where I was and my thinking and stuff, and my view was sort of changing from this, well, I like the idea, to, okay, maybe I'm believing now. Mm-hmm. And so that summer, I remember I attended my first ever sermon, and he saw me from the stage and his eyes lit up, and I was like, I don't think I've ever seen anyone so excited to see me in a room. And I was like, wow, this is interesting. And so I started attending church more regularly. And then September of, I think, 2016, it's either 2015 or 2016, sometime around there, I got baptized. Oh,
wow.
And yeah, that was awesome. The whole youth group came up on stage. You guys have seen where they do the baptisms. If you didn't know, when you're 6'2", it is really hard to bend over up there to get water splashed on your face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
did you like kneel down? Like,
I kind of like leaned forward about as far as I could with the pillar behind me.
Okay.
And just hoped for the best.
That you didn't fall forward.
No. It was kind of like a water park. He dipped his hand in the water and threw it up, and was like, we'll just hope some of it gets on you.
Nice.
Yeah. So then that's kind of how I came into the church. And then, I mean, a lot of people, once they come in, that's kind of like they're in, they'll have their, their ups and downs with it. But I know for me, like specifically, like come 2017, 2018, I actually kind of had a falling out. I had lost some family members, and everything in my life kind of just got flipped on its head. And yeah, so I remember I went from being active every week in the church to I was no longer even attending Sunday mornings. And I was that way until kind of summer of 2019, like the last time our kids got to go on a mission trip. And I remember I was asked to come out, and I had this lost in the woods experience with a camp counselor, one of our co-camp counselors. We're in Idaho.
Like literally lost in the woods?
Literally lost in the woods.
Oh,
so
okay.
we're in Idaho for not really a mission trip, but like a youth event.
Like a servant adventure, was it?
Kind of. And we're on our way back from a barbecue, and we took a different turn than the rest of the leaders. And we ended up in the mountains of Idaho.
I like to say different, not a wrong turn, just a different turn.
Just a different turn.
We took a different turn.
Different turn. It was different because it worked out all right. Ended up in the mountains of Idaho, lost, no service, low gas. He's freaking out because he's like, what are we going to do? And yeah, so I just remember being out there, and I kind of had like this personal connection again of like, I have time to talk to God and kind of figure out like, why am I so mad right now? And so I ended up getting lost, and it worked out for the better. By the way, pull me back at any time. I know I'm just kind of speeding through this here.
No, this is
And so that trip in Idaho kind of flipped my life back around again, and it kind of brought me back to the church. And so I came back, and this was right after Aaron had come in to be our youth pastor, and he had asked me to kind of help out with the kids. He was like, you've been around, you know what's going on. So I was like, sure, I'd love to help. And so I got more involved with the youth again. And with that brought me back into Sunday mornings and being in the church. But I really wasn't fully back. I was still kind of like having my own, internal battle of not necessarily of like, why has this happened to me? It's just like, why am I dealing with this the way that I am? Why is these circumstances making me react this way? And so that went on all the way up till March of this year. I ended up down in California to visit the friend that brought me to this church. And the church he goes to has a kind of like a young adult group. They meet once a month. It's called Collective. And they were basically begging me to go. And I was like, no, like, I'm already having a hard time going to my own church. I'm like, I'm not sure I want to attend your services. And finally they convinced me to go. And I remember sitting, and the message that the pastor was talking about was about just like, you can't do this alone. Like, you can't necessarily have your walk of faith alone. Like, it takes the community. Like, you're a part of the body of God for a reason. And I remember sitting there like, wow, I have been on my own trying to just do this, just swinging and missing this whole time. And then I kind of had that realization of like, the points where it made more sense to me was when there was other people. I'm with another camp counselor, literally lost in the woods, or I'm here with the kids that, are struggling and going through their everyday high school experiences, or just that kind of stuff. And so I had that message, and I was just like, there's no way that this is just an accident. There's no way that you just happened to be preaching this one thing that I needed to hear for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So, and then that just kind of brought me back to here again. And I just feel like it's a nice, not a nice experience, obviously, but like an experience to help relate, especially to more people, especially people who outside the faith, who are like, I don't believe what you're selling me. And I could just kind of be like, I've had the same story as you. I know where you come from. Like, let me help you out here.
Yeah. I've been making all these like notes. It's not just my shopping list here, Alec.
No, you're good.
Like, no, you so many things I want to.
Like I said, I kind of sped through it.
Oh, you're good. There's so much I want to double back and dig into, and jokes I wanted to make along the way, but I tried to restrain myself. But.
Oh, you're good. Absolutely. Anytime, just cut me off, because I'll just speed through a story and we'll never get to the details.
Like we're all parts of the body. You're the broken ACL part off by yourself.
As of right now, yeah.
we need the ACL too. It turns out even this thing that nobody knows what it means or stands for does is kind of important. one of the last things you said was kind of talking to people who don't believe or sharing the faith. What does the faith mean to you? Or I heard you say God or church a number of times, but in terms of kind of what Alec believes, what is, like, if I don't know if there's a way to summarize, how do you see the world? Who is God? What is church? What is the faith that you want to share or that you have for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, overall, obviously it's just belief in God and Jesus. But I think on a human level, it's that community. I feel like, especially nowadays, especially because I did it, so many people are trying to do everything on their own. It's, I can do this. I don't need your help, and making their solid stands on these hills that they're willing to die on. And to me, it's the people. I mean, specifically for me, if I hadn't gone to Collective, if I hadn't have gone to some other church, I wouldn't have ever encountered God to begin with. As far as I know, I would never encounter God to begin with. If I didn't buy into the community that Nathan sold me in 2015, who knows where I would be now,
And that came up kind of a few times in your retelling of people that you knew inviting you, and maybe even like persistently, perhaps annoyingly inviting you. Is that a fair kind of summary of that? You came to moments where there was either a message or a community where there was something of substance, but how you got to that moment of substance was, what I heard you say anyway, was through people you already knew, liked, trusted, kind of walking along with you in that.
Yeah. So I remember when I first started coming to this church in 2015, 2016, and I was on that trip to Eastern Washington for the music festival. And this was probably my second trip. And I had just been baptized that year, and I was talking to someone who was new to the church and a few other people who had been here. And we were kind of having that conversation of like, how do we get, especially young people, to stay? Because especially like high schoolers, I mean, I see it a lot working with the kids. Like high schoolers have other priorities. Fair enough. I was a high schooler. I get it. But we were having that conversation of how do we get them to come to church and stay? And especially for the kids who had friends who weren't believers, they were like, how do I convince them to come to church? And coming from someone who grew up agnostic, I didn't go to any church services until I was 15, 16. I'd always tell them, I was just kind of like, you have to remember that you're just planting a seed. I was like, you're going to be there along the way, hopefully. I was like, but you're not the one to make it grow. So you're inviting them to your youth group, or you're inviting them to your church services, but you are just, like I said, that community. You're just there to kind of guide them along the way. Whereas when they have that final encounter, it's going to be on kind of them and God, the Holy Spirit, and but you are there to just bring them in and love them and bring them along the way with you and remind them like, hey, like, this is your home. Like, you have people here.
Yeah. You didn't say cooler music. Well, how do we get the kids to come or to stay? No. I mean, kind of joking, but
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Shane and I are good. We talk about music a lot, and he's our worship director here at St. Luke's. But so in so many circles, the conversation seems to be, if we want young people or any people to have a relationship with God as we believe in God, then we need to either like market better or better social media or cooler music. And none of those things are bad, but at least in what you've shared with your story so far, those things may have been helpful along the way, but it was people you knew and trusted who were walking with you.
Yeah.
Is that right? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No, you're good. You're absolutely, like you said, like those, marketing and whatnot does work, but at some point, when are you marketing a relationship with God, and when are you marketing your church? So yeah, if you're bringing in kids off of social media and marketing, like, it could be working, but at the same time, are you marketing for them to come experience that community and know God? Or are you marketing, hey, we play really cool games on Tuesday nights. We have lots of snacks. You should just come here.
I do like snacks.
Yeah. Which, I mean, isn't a bad thing. If you're getting kids in, you're getting kids in. But I feel like that's where your retention loses, is because they came in for the cool games and the snacks, and then they get older, their priorities changed, and it's, well, I was never here for God and your community you sold me on.
Yeah. Go back to the earlier in your journey here. I like that metaphor of journey, that we're walking, and even today, none of us have sort of arrived. We might have more or less confidence or surety where we are, but it's a work in progress. You mentioned growing up more or less agnostic, sort of maybe if there's a God, it might even be cool if there is, but I'm not buying it. Was that something that did you grow up with parents, grandparents? I don't know what you're.
So I grew up with both parents.
Is that something they were intentional to say, we want him to make his own choice, or we don't want you to believe in certain things, or we do want you to believe in this? What was that like?
I don't want to say it was really forced either way. My parents don't really go to church. They never really went to church. Lots of different reasons. Life happens. But they, in their own way, are Christians. I don't remember what branch they claim to be, but when I was younger, there was for a brief amount of time the talk of, well, we should go to church services and whatnot. And I don't know what it was. As a kid, I was probably scared to hear the preacher talk about Revelations, and I didn't want to hear about how the world was going to end. And being a little kid and not wanting to hear that stuff, I protested.
And you got to get up early.
Yeah, man.
That's a big obstacle. It's the weekend.
But I think they kind of just left it up to a choice.
Okay.
And it wasn't ever anything like I focused on growing up. I wasn't like walking around like, man, those people that believe in God, you believe that stuff over there. But yeah, it was kind of left to a choice. They never tried to make me do anything I didn't want to do, and I never really questioned it. So
I want to kind of speak into the agnostic part of it that you were saying too with that. So it's kind of like it's a big word. I don't think a lot of people like maybe know what it means, or it might mean something to different people. What did it mean to you when you were a kid?
Yeah. So I actually didn't have a word for it until the year before I started coming to youth group. I was in whatever history class or whatever, and we had, the religious section of the year, and they kind of were talking about the different religions out there. And the one that kind of stuck with me was agnostic. I like the idea of God, but I personally haven't seen the evidence I'm looking for. Okay. So to me, it was just like it could happen.
Almost like a neutral position.
Yeah. Not like I don't believe you, but like, I just haven't seen it. Mm-hmm. So, so I finally had a name for it my sophomore year of high school. And I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to say I'm agnostic then. I don't disbelieve. I don't believe. I'm just kind of here, just waiting to see what happens.
Yeah.
And so you come to youth group, you're hitting people in the face you've never met before. They don't kick you out.
Thankfully.
6 months later, you're continuing to have conversations. You go to a couple of music festivals. You get baptized. Were there conversations along the way that kind of move the needle from neutral, it'd be interesting, but I'm not really convinced one way or another, to I want to get baptized? Besides friendships, what were there conversations? Are there kind of turning points in there?
I did have a few conversations with our pastor at the time, Pastor Jake, and a lot of them happened on those trips. And I don't want to say that that's like what fueled it, but those were kind of just the moments where I was like ready to talk about it. And I just felt like it's probably just because we were in an environment that was nothing but that.
Mm-hmm. And when you say it, what do you mean? Are you talking about like hurts in life? Are you talking about the Bible? Are you talking about philosophy questions?
And specifically in those conversations was like, what do I believe? So on these, youth events and other trips for believers, that's kind of when I was like, this feels like the place where I should talk about this. Because it's one thing, I'm showing up on Tuesday nights, we're playing games and whatnot, but now I'm in a situation where we are actively having prayer. They're doing baptisms. They, it's nothing but a community of believers in those places.
Was that weird? Like those seem like pretty foreign topics, concepts just for normal teenagers playing football. All of a sudden we're talking about the Holy Spirit and washing with water.
Yeah. So, I mean, especially for my first trip, it was very, I don't want to say off-putting, but I was very, I felt separated just because a lot of these kids grew up like this. This is normal for them. There's isn't any new conversations, but when you didn't grow up in the church and you didn't have these kind of, conversations about what the Bible says, all of a sudden I'm sitting here listening to a message about a book of the Bible and I don't even know what this book of the Bible is. We're reading, something like Psalms and I'm like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'm still learning how to flip to this chapter and you're having an in-depth conversation about what this means to my life.
I know that very memory of like you are processing this text and I'm back at the table of contents because they're not in alphabetical order, and how am I supposed to even find the thing?
I still do. I have to use my phone now because I can look it up by name because I'm like, otherwise I'm sitting here flipping because I'm like, you're losing me otherwise.
So some of the challenge, again, I hope I don't sound like I'm ever trying to put words in anybody's mouth. As a person, I'm trying to get better at actively listening. So I try to, here's what I'm hearing you say. Is that right? So please don't let me put words in
I don't know about for other people, but I don't mind it.
Okay.
I don't mind it because you're just having me go back over everything that I skipped over anyway.
Oh, so I think what I heard you say is a couple different things about there was a, awkwardness. You felt like an outsider. And some of that was the content. Like we're talking about things that these kids have talked about that you've never had a conversation, let alone thought about. But there's also an awkwardness of just the literal mechanics of how do I do what we're doing, whether it's, I'm thinking about maybe church of stand up, sit down, say the thing versus, or even just open your Bible to this. So it seems like there's a couple obstacles of one of just the physical mechanics of doing the actual motions. And then the other challenge was emotionally, mentally, spiritually, I'm not in over my head, but I'm out of my comfort context. I don't have any context for this conversation.
Into the deep end.
Yeah. Is that fair? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
That's pretty much exactly how it felt. Aside from 6 months of prep work that I just did from being in a youth group, all of a sudden I'm, thrown into the deep end of a massive Christian music festival. And
yeah, I think I forget. It's easy to forget how strange some of these conversations can be, or the rituals, or the things that kind of the infrastructure almost of how we express our faith.
Yeah, definitely the wording.
The very language we use.
There's so many words we use that we say it's commonplace. We say the Apostles' Creed.
What's an apostle? What's a creed?
Yeah. What are we talking about?
I thought about this yesterday. I was watching the Cardinals game. They defeated the Miami Marlins? It used to be Florida Marlins. Wasn't it Florida for a while?
It's a throwaway team.
Whatever. Okay. We beat them 7-0. It was awesome. And Paul Goldschmidt, he led off with a homer, and he got a single and a double later, and the announcer casually said, he's one hit away from the cycle, which as a baseball fan, cool, I'm with you. And my kids are there. They've never heard the word cycle in a baseball game, and in no context. And then from that point, I'm also just listening to so much of, I guess, all of life is jargon and lingo, and even talk about what's his ERA. I don't know the last time I've heard a baseball announcer define what an ERA is.
I see the stat and I think I know what it means, but I don't know what it means.
Or OPS. He's got a really high OPS.
Couldn't tell you what any of those words meant.
Or even RBI. Okay, you get some of them, and some are a little more intuitive. But even the fact that it's not a point or a goal or a basket, it's a run. And in other sports, the thing that, you get the mark, it's a different name. And so in some ways, I think what we experience in faith, religion, philosophy, worldviews, it can be unnecessarily difficult, and there can be burdens. But in some ways, it's just all of life. That if we went to a hockey game, I would not expect you to know all the words. And if we were friends, I think we're friends. But if we if we went to a hockey game as friends, and I knew you'd never been to a hockey game, I would intentionally say, all right, so here's what's going to happen. Like there's this thing, it's called a face-off, and here's the red line and the blue line and offsides. And I don't know how many times I've explained offsides to people, which is, it's a weird rule, and it's different than soccer. It's different than football. We can use the very same word and mean different things by it. And so I'm kind of rambling. I just observing that going to a new religious community, church, faith tradition or philosophy, if you're an outsider, you're gonna feel like an outsider. Just like going to a new sporting event, if you're an outsider, you're gonna feel like an outsider, and that doesn't feel good, but it's just kind of inherent in life that if you're an outsider, you're an outsider, and I don't know that. Yeah, it's not to make insiders feel guilty or bad about it, but maybe insiders need a new perspective to say. So Nathan, for example, your friend who invited you to youth group, if he cared about you, I mean, he did and does, I would hope that at times he would maybe kind of brace you for some of that. Like, hey, dude, so we're going to pray. And what that means is we're going to like fold our hands and close our eyes, and we're talking to this thing that we don't see and we think he might answer. Like, that's a weird thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know, did anybody kind of brace you for any of that kind of stuff? Sorry, Shane, you were going to say something, but
basically,
Alec. Okay. Yeah. Did anybody sort of walk with you to say, this is going to be weird, we're going to do this, but hang in there and I'll tell you why later or before?
He definitely kind of helped me out with that kind of stuff. Obviously, like with prayer and stuff, I had kind of seen it. I didn't grow up with it, but I had a concept of what was happening. But I mean, as far as like you said, like the Apostles' Creed, I'm like, the first time I ever saw that, I'm like, cool, this guy is going to read something to us. And then everyone's standing up and we're like, oh, I'm reading off a screen. And he like kind of had to explain to me. He's like, this is just like a prayer. It's what we believe. And I was like, okay, I don't understand any of this. Or like the first time, like,
it's like our national anthem.
Yeah. The first time they brought out communion, I was like, what is this? So he had explained communion to me, the body, the blood. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. You're drinking blood. Got it. He's like, no, it's grape juice. I'm like, oh, okay. But yeah, so thankfully I had someone who brought me to the church and cared enough to explain to me the intricacies and don't walk in a room in the middle of a prayer. It's, that kind of stuff. Don't open the really loud church doors in the middle of a very silent prayer.
Which again it reminds me of like going to a sporting event where like, if I don't know about baseball games because they're slow. I go to a lot of hockey games which are faster. If you go to the bathroom or get a drink in the middle of the game and you try to go back to your seat, if the play's going on, they're not going to let you go to your seat. They got like the stop sign. They'll literally stop you, wait for a whistle, and then they'll like, okay, go. So like that's what happens at a hockey game. So it doesn't surprise me, I guess, that if I went to a mosque or synagogue or a church, there might be moments where it might be more or less disruptive if I was doing something here.
Yep.
Go ahead, Shane.
Well, I was gonna say, so like basically with what you've been talking about for the past hour,
God, just rambling over here.
Jeez,
you haven't muted my mic yet.
No, not yet. But well, similar, exactly what you were talking about. What were some of these along your journey so far? What are some of these stumbling blocks for you, or like these aspects of Christianity that are that were hard or still hard for you nowadays? I
mean, if we want to go real basic on what I struggle with, I mean, just reading your Bible, I'm horrible at that. I have like 3 of them at home from different events and places I've been, and I hardly crack them open enough as I should.
So like the habit or the practice of reading it is hard, or the I don't know how to read, or
just that practice of, I mean, some people are good and they're like, every day I'm reading, this chapter, and sometimes I'm like, man, I barely woke up on time for work and I did not read my Bible this morning. Stuff like that. Or, I mean, a lot of it's, now specifically it's just habits of like praying. And I know specifically, like I'll catch myself now of like right now specifically, I'm like, man, I really wish my insurance would hurry up and fix my knee. And then I catch myself and I'm like, well, why am I not like this when I have 2 good knees and things are going great? And I'm able to climb ladders and kneel down and not worry about, man, is my ACL intact right now?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So what I heard you, Shane, ask is like what's hard, whether in terms of either believing or Alec kind of answer like in terms of doing, like practicing my faith. This is a challenge.
Yeah. I would say right now specifically, it's just the habits of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there habits that you mentioned reading and praying? I'm curious, what other habits are maybe important to you, whether you're like, you got some traction or man, I just, maybe you feel guilty or not, but I wish I was better or more consistent. So what are the habits that are part of your life of faith, whether you're kind of nailing them or really dropping the ball?
Man,
does that sound loaded? I'm sorry. That sounded like a moral.
I'm trying to think, man. It got me questioning my whole life now.
No, yeah. Are there things that are part of your walk of faith?
I mean, a lot of it for me, and it's probably just because of like I mentioned before, is that community. That's the huge part for me.
So connecting with other people who believe.
So I would say that's probably the only one I'm really on top of.
Yeah.
And that's mostly because I come in and help out with the youth and just able to kind of connect in a way that, not saying you couldn't connect with them, but I was a little closer to their age. And
you're calling me old. He's looking right at me. If you were listening at home, he's making direct, awkward eye contact with me, saying he's younger and I'm older. And I respect that.
It's okay, Dan. They are calling me old right now because I have a blown out knee, and that doesn't happen for most 23-year-olds.
Oh man. So community, gathering with people is one of your expressions of faith.
Yeah.
Which is different. Other people maybe like, I like to sing by myself and sing hymns. And like, you know what? Cool. That's how you're doing your faith walk. For Alec, it's maybe not singing in the huddle, but it's hanging out on Tuesdays.
I do sing. I just won't do it in front of the church because my spiritual gift is not singing.
All right. That's why we have Shane.
Exactly.
It's everyone's spiritual gift.
All right.
One of these days we'll have a whole one on singing. No, a whole series. No. But yeah, what are some of these other kind of like routines or things you every now and then in your life that help your faith walk or your journey? Like community believers one, any like, I don't know, like praying before meals or I don't know.
I'm bad at that one too. No, man, it's the biggest one for me is just community is the only one I can think of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, on top of that, like I said, I'm bad at trying to remember to pray when things are going well. And that's probably the biggest one I've been working on is just trying to remember, like looking at a broader picture of how your life has gone of like, this time really sucked, but what came after that?
Yeah.
I can compare that to that. Like this time really sucks, but what's coming next? Mm-hmm. So, trying to work more on that. Not why is this happening to me? Like what's coming next after this? How am I going to respond? What are you handing to me that's coming down the line?
So yeah, a couple things I heard there. One is even though you're kind of maybe putting yourself down with respect to prayer, it still sounds like an important value to you, that maybe it's not the habit or the consistent thing that you want to see in your life, but kind of implied in that is this is an important thing you want to see in your life.
Yeah, I would say I feel like I'm bad at the prayer part, but I think that's mostly because I don't do it as an actual like putting my hands together and closing my eyes. Yeah. I'm the kind of person where I'm on a long drive to and from work or whatever, and just kind of sit there and have a conversation with myself to God and just kind of work it out in my head.
Yeah. And then the second thing I heard was that pausing to think about perspective, kind of why is this happening? Where is this going? And even it seems kind of implied in that is a worldview or an understanding that there's something bigger than me and what I'm experiencing. Now, whether it's kind of like destiny or fate, or it's all determined, or there's a bigger picture, but a perspective of it's not random and meaningless and aimless, but there's something bigger and truer in the world. Is that putting words in your mouth, or is that
No. Yeah. So it's definitely trying to look at that bigger picture, especially growing up agnostic. Like I still fall back on a lot of those bad habits of I'm living for me. And I remember, I don't remember 2017, one of our first young adult groups here, one of the girls in the group had asked me, she was like, obviously people in the church don't necessarily meet a lot of other people in the church who didn't believe growing up. So they have questions that they've probably never heard an answer for. And I remember her asking me, she was like, obviously as a believer, we know what's coming next. I know I'm going to, leave this life and go to heaven. I'm going to spend eternity with Jesus and God. And she was like, as an agnostic person, what were you just living to live? And, it was kind of like the biggest thing that they wanted to know. And it was like, you live for yourself almost. Obviously the people around you, that community aspect doesn't change. It's just the type of community around you.
Yeah. And in some ways that's no different than my every single day. Right. I mean, I wake up and I think about myself, and it takes me a good 2 or 3 cups of coffee before I get beyond that. And even there, I don't get much far beyond that. And I might think about others, but it's really, I want them to be nice to me and make my life easier.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it's just a lot of that, trying to see that bigger picture and remembering that there's something greater than I, and what happens in this life isn't the end.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And there's also, I don't want to, Alec is speaking for Alec. So somebody else who's an agnostic might be experiencing things very differently or have had different experiences. And there's also something beautiful about savoring life. Today's today, and let's make it a good one.
Yep.
And in some ways, you don't have to have an afterlife or a resurrection or a reincarnation to appreciate the sunset or the coffee or the conversation with friends. And yet, at the same time, there is something different of this moment. If it's all it is different than if it's part of something bigger. And just recognizing more and more of, we can have even just 3 of us in the room right now, or on the light rail, small subset of people who are doing or experiencing the very same thing, but perhaps from very different understandings about all of life. And I think so many of those other understanding things are often really below the surface, and they're hard to get to. And so I don't have a point with that other than communication's really hard, and we're coming from very different places.
Sorry, Dan. I feel like most of my conversation hasn't ended in a point, so it's just been details thrown out into the wind at you.
Oh, this is good.
We never have a point in the show.
Just an idea a couple guys took too far.
Yeah.
Just letting someone talk and just picking out the details from in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So something completely different. I'm going back a little ways for something you said, and you don't have to get into the details of it, but when you were just talking about there was a moment in your life you were mad at God, or you were mad that something in your life happened, and we don't have to go into details of that, but I'm curious on what did it look like when you were mad at God, when you were battling that?
Yeah. I actually don't mind sharing the details. Just
okay. Yeah.
So when I had lost 2 family members. I lost my aunt, which was hard, obviously, but she was the only family, blood family in state. We have no other family in the state.
Okay.
And so she kind of helped raise me as I grew up. She, on my mom's side. Mm-hmm. And so, not even probably less than a month after, we lost my godfather to cancer. Mm. And so I took relief for a little bit and knowing I'll see him again. This wasn't the end. And then that relief, as time went on and memorials happened and I had to relive their life through pictures, turned into, why did this have to happen? For my godfather specifically, he had cancer, and he went from a larger guy, not big, but pretty built, to skin and bones.
That's hard to see.
And so I don't know if it was so much hatred, but more just questioning of why did that have to happen to him? Why did he have to go through that? So that just turned into a questioning of not why are you letting this happen, but why did this have to happen to my family?
Yeah.
This is something I just had a lot of conversation about in the last week, and I'd be curious to your perspective. if you can kind of remember your state in that moment, which is maybe changed because perspective always changes, but in that moment, would it be more helpful, thinking about like a church youth group, would it be more helpful for those Christians in this case to kind of provide the answer and point to what God promises in Scripture, or would it be more helpful for them to sort of be with you in your pain and let you kind of experience that and kind of go with you into the journey? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like sometimes we want to fix people, and they're like, sometimes people are like, don't fix me, just let me hurt.
Just let it happen. No, yeah, I see both sides of that. I kind of
what did you experience? What did people do for you in that?
I kind of saw both sides, very briefly, at least. I have come to believe more in that walking with them aspect of it, just because I know that when I went through it, the only thing I wanted was just people there. Just don't tell me it's going to be fine. Like the night we left the hospital after my aunt passed away, that's all I thought about was I'm going to see her again. I know the answer here. Like it's going to work out. So I didn't need more of that. Obviously, like people, like you said, want to try and help and fix it. But I wanted more of just surrounding myself with people that cared, people that, not necessarily understood, but were willing to listen. And I know recently, like a friend of mine lost his grandfather. And I told him pretty shortly after, I said, look, I was like, I'm not going to tell you I can fix this because I can't. But I was like, if you ever need me, it's like, you call me.
Yeah.
And I've tried to check up just because it's what I feel is right to do. And I suck at it. I feel we all fail at doing the things that we want others to do. But yeah, at least for people in the church and maybe even people outside, I don't think the preaching works. Because, I mean, especially when you're at a very low point, I feel like people aren't very perceptive to...
What do you mean by preaching there? Like telling them the answer?
Yeah, so I know if I was still outside of the church and I lost a family member and someone came up and was like, well, let me tell you about God and you're going to see him again and here's heaven. And I probably wouldn't listen. It's the same as when you're walking to a baseball game and they're outside yelling at you with a mic, like the megaphones. I'm like, I'm not listening to you. I'm like, you're yelling words at me in the wrong way.
So if preaching doesn't help or doesn't work, what does it look like for, let's say somebody is a Christian and they care about you? How do they love you well in that moment?
For me, it was a lot of just your friendships of who's there when you have a 3 a.m. phone call of like, hey man, I'm having a rough night. I need to talk to someone. Like, I don't want you to fix me. I just want you to let me work through it.
Yeah. That's helpful. Shane, I'm keep cutting you off. I'm sorry, but
No, you're fine. I just echo what you said because I remember my close friend in college. He lost his grandma, and it made him so mad. I think rightfully so. It's like because someone not really friends with him, but somebody was like, "It's all part of the plan." Just like, dude, just did not say the right words. Yeah. We're trying to just preach to him, like.
And some people might like that. I just from a personal experience, I've never wanted to hear right after is, well, you'll see him again. Because in that moment, I'm like, well, I want to see him now. I don't want you to tell me that I'll see them again when I die. Like,
yeah, that's not as comforting as you think it might be.
Yeah. If someone just died, now you're telling me that I have to die to see them again? I don't want to hear that.
Oh.
Yeah.
So as far as this goes, not that any of us what we were saying, Pastor, and have come to a point of fully understandment and whatnot. But as far as this kind of storyline goes with that now, have you come to a point where you're come to better grip? Sure. Come to a better grip with it, or
what is
it still something you're wrestling with? Oh, sorry, like losing someone, like asking God why, and
So I didn't share too much about it, but a lot of it too from that became relationships that I kind of lost along the way of just how I felt I was being treated at the time by the people around me. And so, definitely, so especially on like those trips that I mentioned where I would have my conversations with God about, what's happening to me, I kind of came to a closure on that, to say, of like, I accept what has happened. I've never really wanted to be that guy questioning like, oh, why is this happening to me? Because it's going to happen. It happens to everyone. But yeah, I tried to focus my attention from why is this happening to how am I just going to make myself better and get over this?
Okay.
So yeah, I spent a lot of time finding closure for myself, I guess you could say. And just healing, finding a way through it.
Yeah. That makes sense. Sorry, I asking pressing questions. Sorry.
Oh, you're good. I'm open for it. So,
all right.
I don't have a good metaphor for this one. I've got a couple in my head, but I'm thinking about sometimes I go for a run and I literally would just get lost in the woods. Dash Point State Park is a 400-acre park with all these trails, and my first few runs in there, it's just like totally random, and that was its own kind of fun, which is different than I'm here and I'd like to get to there.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to get at what's next for you, but I don't want to make it sound like we're in control or necessarily even in charge of this thing. So I'm thinking even like a float trip down a river. Like you can sort of passively like, well, we're just going to see where the river takes us. Or you can like kind of kayak the rapids and sort of like, I'd like to steer there. So if we're talking about journey of faith and understanding and spirituality as something of a journey, recognizing you've got a history, you've got a present. If you have any sort of influence on where things go, what's next in this kind of walk of faith? Something you want to do or experience or know, or like where do you go from here? What does that look like?
My biggest thing right now, just in being with the church, has just been a lot of working with the youth. Just I've always enjoyed working with kids. I used to work in a nursery and stuff growing up. So I just feel like that is where I can connect with them. Just try and get them into the church and just talk to them and help how you can. So I feel like where I would like to end up is just in that same kind of position, is in a place where I can connect with kids who were like how I used to be. And they're working their way down the rapids and trying to find their way from point A to point B. And they're just looking possibly for some sort of guidance from anyone who may, have tips to give them.
Yeah. Even if that guidance might be, I don't know, but I'll sit with you in it. Like,
yeah. Well, we'll listen to it, but I can't promise I have anything to say.
Yeah. That sounds so refreshing to me. Of maybe the best thing I can offer is I have no idea, but that really stinks, and I'm here with you.
Yeah.
What a beautiful thing.
Just know you're not alone. Yeah.
Which is very different than I'll fix it. Do. Yeah. Shane, what do you think? The journey so far?
What do I think? Like, to that question, or for Alec? What do you?
It was a very broad statement.
What do you think?
What am I thinking right now?
What are you thinking this very moment? No, what
are you thinking? I don't.
No, what do you want to ask Alec? One last question for Mr. Alec Brandli about his journey of faith.
I feel like I've asked a lot of the ones that came to my mind in the moment. And I'm sure there's going to be hundreds of more that are going to come after this podcast. But
well, I'll gladly come back if you got more. So
oh yes,
well, and it's ongoing. I think this has been cool to hear a bit about where you've come from, but I realize one conversation is just one conversation. That any one of those segments of your journey that you shared could itself be 10 hours worth of conversations. And Alec, I'm looking forward to digging in more and to seeing kind of what's next for all of us. And I'm glad you don't walk alone and we don't walk alone. And people who are listening or watching aren't alone either. Even if you believe or don't believe as the people around you, again, I'm trying to like not load things. So like you might have a particular faith that your friends or family don't, or you might not share the faith of people around you. I just encourage you to keep that conversation going, and you don't need to agree with the people around you. You don't have to have everything solved in order to walk together well. So even Alec, just kind of you're one small part of your story of you were at a different kind of faith spot than the youth group that you were part of, and yet you journeyed together, and that's helped shape who you are today.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people listening, watching, thanks for joining us. Have a conversation. Ask your neighbor, ask your friend, ask your coworker if it's appropriate. Ask your spouse or your kids or your pastor or your youth worker, hey, how'd you get to be where you are with what you believe? And they might not believe what you believe at all, but I think we can all grow from the conversation. So tune in next week. We'll have more. If you'd like some merch or swag, come by St. Luke's in Federal Way. You can send us an email at 2414@stlukes-church.com, and Shane Welter will personally pay for shipping to get you your keychain, magnet, or sticker.
Oh, no guarantee.
If you would like to support the show so that Shane Welter has a budget to send people their keychains, stickers, or magnets, you can do that at www.stlukes-church.com/podcast.
Or if you have experience, just reach out.
Or if you want to be our new video editor, or if you want to work the soundboard for us off camera or on camera, we'd love some help. We're just having fun, trying to keep the conversation going. So thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.
That's the end of the episode, but we want to continue the conversation. Continue the conversation by sharing this episode, subscribing, or leaving a review. Connect with us on Instagram at 2414podcast. Connect with us through email at 2414@stlukes-church.com. Or best of all, keep the conversation going by inviting someone to process with you so that you can each walk away with more understanding that leads to more conversation as the journey continues. If you happen to be in the Seattle-Tacoma area of Washington, stop by on a Sunday morning and say hi. 2414 is a podcast produced by St. Luke's Lutheran Church in Federal Way, Washington. To find more content, discover upcoming opportunities to connect in person, or to support the show, head on over to stlukes-church.com. Thanks for walking with us.